Trump still criticizing the judge in a Trump University case. Trump concerned, and I can't make this up, he's a Mexican, even though the judge was born in Indiana. The Donald doubling down, and a growing number of Republicans getting fed up. Also, Hillary Clinton about to get to the magic number, but Bernie Sanders, he's burning mad and lashing out. What will it take for him to drop out? And we have two former congressmen joining us on the set here, one Democrat and one Republican, both serving on national security committees. We're going to ask Chris Shays of Connecticut and Steve Rothman of New Jersey, not just about Trump, but also about the issues that the next president will face here in a very troubling world. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. A lot to get to in the next 60 minutes. Just when you thought Trump couldn't dig himself any deeper, well, he grabs a shovel, if not two. Now, we've been telling you about how the Donald doesn't want a quote-unquote Mexican judge to reside over the Trump University fraud case in California. He's sticking by that, and now he's concerned about Muslim judges as well. Take a listen for yourself.
If you are saying he can't do his job because of his race, is that not the definition of racism?
I don't think so at all. This judge is giving us unfair rulings. Now I say why. Well, I'm building a wall, okay? And it's a wall between Mexico, not another country.
But he's not from Mexico.
In my opinion,
he's from Indiana.
He's Mexican heritage, and he's very proud of it.
If we're a Muslim judge, would you also feel like they wouldn't be able to treat you fairly because of that policy of yours?
It's possible, yes.
Trump, he's getting slammed not just by the usual suspects, but just about from anybody not named Trump or getting paid by Trump, even fellow Republicans unloading, including Newt Gingrich, who was supposedly on the short list for running mate.
I think it's inexcusable. This judge was born in Indiana. He is an American, period.
How about Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader? He's not too thrilled with what his party's presumptive nominee is saying.
Essentially said he cannot be impartial because he's Hispanic. Is that not a racist statement?
No, I couldn't disagree more with a statement like that.
Is it a racist statement?
I couldn't disagree more with what he had to say.
Okay, but do you think it's a racist statement to say?
I don't agree with what he had to say. This is a man who was born in Indiana.
Now, you can add Paul Ryan, John Kasich, and the list goes on and on. But here's an additional headline. We learned late today in a private meeting, Donald Trump, and it's very unusual for a candidate, a president candidate at this level in June of election year, got on and basically told supporters out at the state levels in the circuit, don't listen to anything my staff says. We're going to double down against the judge. So if anyone was hoping for an apology, and many Republicans called on their nominee to deliver one, I would not hold your breath. Let's bring in our panel right now. Former Democratic New Jersey Congressman Steve Rothman. He joins us. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist and author. Chris Shays, former Republican Congressman from Connecticut. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. I'll get to the politics in 1 second. But just think about what he said from a practical standpoint.
I don't want to think about what he said. He's a sick man. The fact that he would keep going in this direction, and you're saying, just when you think he couldn't get worse, it's going to get worse. So I think of Paul Ryan and the others that are supporting him, they're going to have to continually come out and say, well, I disagree with that. And Mitch McConnell should have said what it was. It was racist. And when we wrap our arms around Donald Trump, then we have to live with everything he said.
Will they keep their arms around him? Is there a point where they say, you know what, I wish, and I thought this was telling, when Hillary went after him in California, who came to his defense? Nobody. The Republican voices in the mute that I heard, to me, spoke more volumes than even how she said it. I would argue, and I said this at the time, and not everybody agreed with me, Paul Ryan made a big mistake endorsing him.
A huge mistake.
Don't you think?
Huge mistake. I called some of my friends who haven't endorsed him and I said, please don't do this because you're going to regret it. I was in Nuremberg, you wouldn't know that, about 2 weeks ago. And there were so many people said, oh, Hitler won't be like this when he's elected. Mussolini won't be like this. And they were like that. Now, Trump's no Hitler, but you got to believe what he says. And what he's, well, actually, I don't believe what he says. I got to retract that. I mean, the bottom line is, if he does what he says he will do, it will be destructive to our country. If he doesn't do what he promises to do, he will be the biggest con artist ever in the history of mankind. He's a dangerous person.
You know, it's funny, your namesake, no relation, Christy Todd Whitman, in that very chair said many of the same things that the congressman said here, former governor of New Jersey, fellow Republican as well. I get that there's a little buyer's remorse. It was funny. Other than Congressman Collins from New York, who endorsed him early, and even he was treading lightly where he was going, I couldn't find another surrogate who came out and spoke for Trump. And this is the season where there's been a political calculation made. We're better off holding our nose and getting behind him. We've seen the polls. But with each passing week, there's no political metric or no line he won't cross. Where does this go from here?
I think this goes battered and bloody to the convention and then on to November. Look, I think a lot of the support that Trump's gotten from elected officials and from party leaders has been transactional in nature, from Chris Christie all the way through. I think there are a few people who are on board. Carl Palladino in New York State, a few other,
Just think about where you had to go.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I know. A few other local level officials, but for the most part, the support for Trump has been transactional, and so I think the congressman's right. They're sort of going to get a taste of what they bought in for throughout all of this, but no, they're not going to go running to his defense on every one of these gaffes.
And I think it's getting less and less like it. You know, the stunning part for me, Dominic, and you've known Trump longer than anyone at this table. I actually think knows better. We disagree that there's a method to the madness. I just think it's madness. But I don't know if we have it, but in 2012, Trump made an unsolicited remark. He wasn't pressed on the failure of the GOP in terms of shrinking their base. And he was critical of Mitt Romney for turning off the Latino vote, for being a party that was viewed, whether it would on the immigration reform or whatever else, as being too hard-hearted. The guy who's perceptive enough to say that and then come out and say this, I don't think he has a capacity to say, I was wrong. Look at Hillary Clinton this weekend. As soon as she had an opportunity, she said, I made a mistake with the emails. Now, you can say she should have said it a long time ago. She should have said it stronger. She gave all the caveats, so you're going to say all of it. But she went out of her to say, I was wrong, I made a mistake. I don't think he's got the capacity to say it.
Well, I think he does, Richard. I think that he's playing to his base, and it's despicable, and it's disgusting, but he's playing the race card. And unfortunately for all of society, he's doing a good job of playing the race card. I am telling you, privately, from an African-American talking to him, he never showed any of these gimmicks. And that's what he knows what he's doing.
But wait a second, you saw him at the event?
He says my African-American.
He pointed one guy and goes, hey, there's my African-American. My African-American.
You don't think he knows what he's saying? Do you really think he doesn't? He knows, Richard.
I don't think he can help himself.
No, he can.
I don't think he can help himself.
Congressman, I am telling you.
I don't think he can help himself.
In private conversations on the phone and private meetings, he never once said anything racial to me. Not once. He's not stupid. He's playing the race card.
If you call him stupid, he'll call you.
I was critical of him. I was very critical of him.
Trust me. You criticize him, you will be on his list.
Okay.
I don't see, even in the most favorable light, how this works in the end. Do you think they've made their bed, they got to sleep it, Republicans will hold their nose and hope for the best here? Or do you think we're going to start seeing people peel off? Explain this to me. Whatever you say about transactional politics, Newt Gingrich, right? At least he used to, be able to count heads or votes. For him to turn, and Bob Corker to turn, those were the two guys on the short list. It says something to me that there's dysfunction going on in the campaign here, that even those closest that are waiting for the Veep nod, they're not waiting.
Well, Richard, you're right to point out that the Republican Party is in great distress and disarray for good reason. They've got a presumptive presidential nominee, a candidate for president, who is saying racist things. And I agree with Dominic. I think he does know better. And he's trying to appeal to those who are angry that America is getting browner and blacker and yellower, and that people from all over the world are coming and enjoying the benefits and contributing to America like immigrants have since our founding. All of us are immigrants except the native peoples, and I haven't met too many full-blooded native people lately. We're all immigrants. What's disturbing about Donald Trump playing this race card is, number one, he's factually wrong. People from ethnic groups and religious groups other than his can be cops and firefighters and judges. They do have the brains and the integrity to hold those jobs. And number two, what he said was unconstitutional. We have the right in America under our Constitution to freedom of religion, number one. And number two, we have the right to equal treatment under the law, no matter what our race, no matter what our religion. So he is saying things that are wrong. He's saying things that are unconstitutional and really betraying and demonstrating his unfitness, not only to be president, but to be a Republican candidate or a Democratic
Can I
candidate.
be on the record for one thing? He is a 7th grade bully and he can't help himself.
And every time he's pushed back, this is where it escalates. And I think today the best example is everybody and their brother said, guys, you got to step this thing back. This won't work. You got to do it. And he just couldn't do it. And he overrode apparently his staff, who was telling people, let's walk this thing back. He didn't mean to go there and said, don't listen to anyone else. I'm telling you directly, double and triple down on this. I got to hit a quick break here. Now, when we come back, the Trump University case knows no boundaries. If you thought it was just what happened in New York here, think again. Texas was also investigating the school for fraud until it wasn't. The case was dropped. What happened and why? Well, we've got the reporter who broke the story.